Is light a wave or a particle? For about 150 years, physicists fought about this. Some experiments showed waves and other experiments showed particles. And it had to be one or the other, right? Turns out, it's both, depending on how you look at it. And guess what? Buddhism figured this out 1,000 years ago. Not about light, but about reality itself. Welcome back to Quantum Awareness. I'm QP, and that's short for Quantum Perceptor. And today, we're diving into one of the most beautiful parallels I've ever found between quantum physics and Buddhist philosophy. So we've covered some heavy topics already. In episode 1, we talked about panpsychism, that's consciousness everywhere, and episode 2, superposition, multiple states at once. And now we're going to put it all together with something called wave-particle duality. And I've got to tell you, when I first discovered the connection between this quantum phenomena and 1,000-year-old Buddhist teaching, I had one of those moments where everything just clicks. You'll see what I mean. Let's start with the physics. In 1801, that's over 200 years ago, a guy named Thomas Young did this experiment that changed everything. He shot particles, photons of light, at a steel plate with 2 slits in it, and then he watched what pattern showed up on the screen behind the plate. If light is particles, you'd expect to see 2 bright spots, one for each slit. Like if you threw baseballs through 2 windows, you'd see impacts in 2 places. But that's not what Young saw. He saw an interference pattern. Waves. When waves overlap, they create these beautiful rippling patterns. So light must be waves, right? Well, here's where it gets weird. When Young put a detector at the slits to track the individual photons to see which slit each particle went through, the wave pattern disappeared. And suddenly he saw particle patterns. 2 spots. The act of observing changed what light was. This is the observer effect, and we keep talking about it. But it's so important. Get this, when a single photon was fired, it split into 2 at the slits, acted like a wave, then reunited as a particle at the screen. 1 photon displaying qualities of both waves and particles simultaneously. Einstein himself said, "It seems as though we must use sometimes one theory and sometimes the other. Well, at times we may use either. We are forced with a new kind of difficulty. We have 2 contradictory pictures of reality. Separately, neither of them fully explains the phenomenon of light, but together they do. 2 contradictory pictures paint a reality that together make truth." Hold that thought. Now, Buddhism, not surprisingly, has some 1,000-year-old insights that compare almost exactly to this quantum phenomena. In roughly year 1320, the 3rd Jalpa Karmapa, Rangjung Dorje, wrote his crowning treatise on Mahamudra. He wrote it in poetry, beautiful cryptic verses. And listen to this. Verse 6 says, "And the nature of the ground is the dual truth, free from extreme views of permanent reality and of nihilism." Karmapa is saying that the dual truth is free from any idea of permanent, unchanging existence and free from the nothingness of nihilism. Sounds a little bit like Einstein, doesn't it? 2 contradictory pictures that both need to be true? Karmapa, dual truth, neither permanent nor nothing. Einstein, dual nature, neither purely waves nor purely particles. Same idea, different language. In case we didn't catch it the first time, Karmapa clarifies this in verse 11. "May we recognize mind's essence, which is free of any extremes. It is not existent, for even the Buddhas do not see it. It is not non-existent, for it is the basis of everything, of conditioned existence and the state beyond suffering. This is not a contradiction. It is the middle way of unity." Read that last part again. This is not a contradiction. It is the middle way of unity. What Einstein initially proposed to be a contradiction, Karmapa counters with his conviction that it's the middle way of unity. And Einstein eventually agreed. He said separately that the theories don't fully explain light, but together they do. Thomas Young would agree here too. He observed particles splitting, acting as waves, then reuniting as particles once again. This is very clearly non-dual, co-emergent reality. Now we get to verse 18, and this is my personal favorite. Karmapa clarifies once more for the doubters among us. Observing phenomena, none is found. One sees mind. Looking at mind, no mind is seen. It is empty in essence. Though looking at both, one's clinging to duality naturally dissolves. May we recognize mind's true nature, which is clear, light. In complete agreement, Einstein and Karmapa both recognize that a complete, unified understanding of the seen and the unseen, the particle and the wave-like worlds between quantum physics and Buddhism leads to the truth of our true existence. And here's what I really find amazing. Young and Einstein were both talking about light, photons, waves, and particles of light. And Karmapa, he ends his verse with, may we recognize mind's true nature, which is clear light. Light, it's all about light. So what is non-duality? In Buddhism, non-duality means reality isn't split into fixed opposites. It's not this or that. It's not either or. It's both and. Subject and object aren't separate. The observer and the observed aren't separate. Wave and particle aren't separate. They're different aspects of the same thing, appearing differently on context and observation. Does that sound familiar? That's exactly what wave-particle duality is saying. Light isn't a wave or a particle, it's light, and it shows up as waves or particles depending on how we observe it, but fundamentally, it's just light. One thing expressing itself in different ways. Here's where this gets really practical. Meditation helps us see more clearly. Once the veils of our emotion of jealousy, anger, or confusion are cleared away, we see our world free from their constant blurring effect. Our newly developed wisdom transforms suffering into joy. Now think about the double-slit experiment. When the detector, the observer, is turned on, we see evidence of particles. That's what we normally see in everyday life. The particle nature of things, solid, separate, fixed. But if we train ourselves in meditation, maybe, just maybe, we can start to see the wave nature too, the possibilities, the interconnection, the fluidity. Maybe we can understand or even see our consciousness in action. Watch as our awareness interacts with the collapsing wave front into our particle-based material world. I know this sounds crazy. I really do. But why not? It might be really amazing. So Karmapa, Thomas Young, and Einstein seem to agree on quite a lot. Maybe the only thing they disagree about is the path. Mathematics versus meditation. Young and Einstein used experiments and equations to discover wave-particle duality. Karmapa used meditation and direct observation of mind to discover non-duality. So do both roads lead to Rome? I think so. Why not do both? That's why people like me are here, trying to bridge these worlds. Here's what gets me, and this is what really, really gets me. When Buddhism talks about emptiness, it doesn't mean nothingness. It means empty of fixed, independent existence. A wave is empty of being a fixed, solid thing. It's dynamic, flowing, changing. A particle appears solid, but it's actually empty of independent existence. It's made of smaller particles, which are made of energy, which is what? Waves, vibration, and information. The deeper you look, the less solid everything becomes. The more wave-like, the more empty of fixed nature. Until you realize, like Karmapa said, observing phenomena, none is found. You see mind. Looking at mind, no mind is seen. It's empty in its essence. Through looking at both, the particle and the wave nature, the form and emptiness, one's clinging to duality, naturally dissolves. Understanding this, really understanding it, changes how you experience reality. That person you're in conflict with, they're not just a fixed, solid enemy. Yeah, they're waves and particles constantly changing, empty of fixed nature, just like you. The problem you're facing, it's not a solid, insurmountable thing. It's also waves and particles. It exists differently depending on how you observe it or how you approach it. Your own identity, not fixed, not solid. Waves and particles, both and neither, constantly collapsing and reforming based on observation and context. So where does this leave us? Einstein and Karmapa, separated by hundreds of years and completely different methods, arrived at the same truth. Reality is dual, non-dual. Both wave and particle. Both form and emptiness. Both existent and not existent. The answer isn't choosing one or the other. The answer is holding both, the middle way, the unity. That's what meditation trains us to do. To hold the paradox, see both the wave and the particle, recognizing that they're not contradictory, they're complementary. So, waves and particles, they seem to the unlearned, to those of us who haven't looked closely, to be two very different things. But when we look deep down the quantum rabbit hole, and when we look deep into our own awareness through meditation, we begin to see how words like non-dual and unity have a very big place in both the quantum world and Buddhism alike. The universe is trying to show us something through experiments with light, through meditations on mind, through poetry and equations and direct experience. Maybe we should pay attention. Next time on Quantum Awareness, we're exploring in our 4th episode, Schrödinger's cat, and we're going to ask the question, was the cat enlightened? Ow! Until then, hold the duality, see the waves and the particles, and remember, mind's true nature is clear light. This is QP. Sound is emptiness, emptiness is sound, and all is light. See you next time.